Hi guys, so today is a bit of a different video and I had the idea for this when I was filming the 90s tag. One of the questions was what was your favourite childhood book or what was your favourite book from the 90s kind of thing. And it got me thinking about how many of my childhood books I still have. I'm a bit of a hoarder, I don't like to throw things away and I especially don't like to throw books away. So I have pretty much all of the books from my childhood still sort of stored away, and I thought it might be nice to make a video talking about some of my favourites. You're going to notice a bit of a theme with some of the earlier ones because I was just the tiniest bit obsessed with Enid Blyton. My mum had been a huge Enid Blyton fan when she was young, and my granny had read all the Enid Blyton books to her and then she'd read them herself. So she read them all to me and so did my granny, and I then read them all myself because I, as I say, was just the tiniest bit obsessed. So let's get started. First of all, from sort of very early childhood, I have a couple of these Enid Blyton little pocket library books. Now, I had loads of these. I've still got like, I think 10 of them upstairs. How ridiculous. But I just brought down two that I thought were particularly cute. This one is called The Toys New Palace, and it's got little mice and dolls and teddies and stuff, and basically they lived in the toy room of a little girl's house, and in the night they came to life and had a party and built themselves a nice castle out of blocks and all that kind of stuff, and it was extremely cute and I still always remember that one. And this one is called The Fairy Kitten, which I can't really remember exactly what it was about, but I'm assuming that it was about a kitten that was also a fairy. I'm gonna sort of check out that detective work. I'm having a little flick through. It's about, oh, they're like tiny kittens, like the tiniest little cats I've ever seen. But yeah, I had loads of these little books, little pocket library Enid Blyton ones for when I was really small. They're for like ages, I don't even know what ages these are for, but I read them when I was tiny and I loved them. Moving on to the rest of the Enid Blyton books, I have this one which my granny read to me. I don't know how many times I got her to read this to me when I was like preschool age kind of thing. This is The Magic Faraway Tree, and it was, would you believe, about a magical tree in a forest where lots of sort of exciting characters lived. This is one of them. Can I get this in the shot? This is Moonface, I remember that. And there was a fairy called Silky, and the illustrations in this are just absolutely beautiful. Next, continuing with more Enid Blyton, we have the Famous Five series. I read, I think, all of them, probably. This one is 5 Have a Wonderful Time, which sounds a bit more exciting and more sort of cheerful than a lot of the stories, because a lot of them had very kind of like dramatic names from sort of scary places that they went on adventures to. Sorry, my card ran out of memory space and I don't know if I've set the camera up in exactly the same position as it was before, but it doesn't really matter. Anyway, suffice to say, loved the Famous Five, read all of them. Another from the Enid Blyton collection, how many books did that woman write? I mean, seriously, I would actually like to know. I might look that up at the end of this video. But this was The Twins at St Clair's, which, if you couldn't sort of figure it out from the title, was about twin sisters who went to a school, a girls' boarding school called St Clair's, and it was just about the adventures that they had with their friends during their term time at school. More Enid Blyton stuff. This is The Mountain of Adventure, and there was a big series of the This of Adventure and the That and Adventure, and again I read, I don't know how many of them there were like, there was like a series of like adventure, the such and such adventure and the such and such mystery. I can't remember if it was the same characters who were in all of these. Philip, Jack, Dinah and Lucy Ann were apparently the characters in this one. And yeah, I got all of these. I had a few of them, but I got most of them out of the library and just read them, I think probably one after the other, because I loved them so much. And I remember, I think this one possibly in particular, I was so sad when I finished it because I loved it so much and I wanted to just read it again. But yeah, they were another collection that I loved. Nearly done with the Enid Blyton, I promise. Well, a couple more to go. This is The Magical Adventures of the Wishing Chair, which is another sort of series of, well, I think it's 2 books from this series, 2 or 3, and basically 2 kids go away, they have a chair in their playroom and they sit in it and it takes them on adventures. Much the same concept as a lot of the other Enid Blyton books, 2 children, 3 children, 4 children, however many, going on adventures together, and they were always really kind of uplifting sort of reads, well, when you're, you know, 5. But yeah, I really enjoyed this, and this was another one that I continually pestered my gran to read me. Next we have The Treasure Hunters and The Happy House Children, more Enid Blyton ones. You can see that these ones are like properly old copies because the paper like cover is completely fallen apart. But this in particular, I don't know how many times I read this when I was wee. Like my mum read it to me when I was tiny, and then when I was old enough to read it myself, I read it over and over and over again. It's about these 3 children. They are living at their grandparents' house, and out in the woods just outside their house, they find this old house all hidden and covered in ivy and flowers and plants and whatever grown over, and it's sort of hidden it away from sort of public view, and they discover, funnily enough, that there is hidden treasure there, and I absolutely loved this. And last but not least, you've heard about it in a couple of videos before, my favourite childhood book of all time, The Secret Island by Enid Blyton, about 4 children who decide to run away to a secret island. They take a little boat and they go across this island and try to make a new life there to get away from their horrid parents slash grandparents slash aunt and uncle or whoever the sort of guardians were. I'm pretty sure it was grandparents actually. And they take a cow to the island, they have chickens. It's just, oh, it's a great read. I'm tempted to start reading this again now actually. Alright, so we're done with Enid Blyton. Next I have one of my favourite series of books ever, partly for the illustrations but partly for the story, and this was the Plucky series by Ivy Wallace. Now, I absolutely loved these when I was wee. I got the first one, I feel like maybe my aunt gave me it, and loved it so much. Like, some of the illustrations in this are just so beautiful. Like, this is him, this is Plucky, he's a rabbit who grows wings. It's just a lovely series of books. He makes all these friends with sort of fairies and elves, and I mean, look at these illustrations. Ah, they're so beautiful. In a similar vein to Enid Blyton, the kind of mystery idea, I was a massive Nancy Drew fan. This is a sort of 3-part, 3 stories in the one book Nancy Drew kind of one, and I liked to imagine that I was Nancy Drew. I also remember that when I was reading them, she was like, I'm assuming sort of like early 20s sort of thing, and I was obviously like primary school age, and she was like early 20s and had this, she was a detective and she had a boyfriend, and it all felt very kind of like, it was like the sort of like more mature version, having finished with the kind of famous 5 and all that. Reading the Nancy Drew ones felt just like a little bit more grown up, so I remember getting quite excited when I moved on to these. And I read so many of these. This, as I say, is like a sort of collector's edition with 3 books in one, but I got loads out of the library. I've got another couple upstairs. I really need to have a clear out. But yeah, Nancy Drew was another firm favourite. Alright, next we have a very famous series, and this is the Chronicles of Narnia, and I had the complete box set. My first ever box set was the Narnia books, but I loved all of these. Trying to remember, I think Prince Caspian was my favourite of the series. I loved The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Oh, I've just looked at myself, my hair needs cut so badly. I think Prince Caspian was my favourite. I'm going to reread these because I adored them so much. I remember getting to the end of the last battle and being like, oh, it's all finished, there's no more. But this series, it's just the most beautiful box set. I think I love that as much as I actually love the books. But they really are the most gorgeous sort of chunky hardback books, with the most beautiful illustrations on the cover. There's Aslan. But yeah, I absolutely loved The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe and all of the ones in this Narnia series. I just remember reading this for the first time and thinking, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And I read it a couple of times, and then obviously the next